Hey, my lovely, wonderful people, a pleasant evening to you. Now, I saw something online. I think I saw it from yesterday. It says Education Ministry rallies stakeholders in hunt for 300 students missing from school. And this has been since the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Wow, 300, that's quite a number. The Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information has indicated that it has engaged multiple stakeholders to help locate the more than 300 students who have been missing from the formal school system since the passage of Hurricane Melissa in October last year, which is 2025. Speaking yesterday during a quarterly press briefing hosted by the Education, Transformation and Oversight Committee, ETOC, Dr. Kassan Troop, Permanent Secretary of the Education Ministry, said the ministry has revamped its Find the Child initiative, which was first launched during the COVID-19 pandemic. School professionals such as guidance counselors, deans of discipline, family life educators, and regional directors have been enlisted in the search for children, along with members of the wider community, which includes pastors and local grassroots organizations. And this is Dr. Kassan Troop speaking now. When we returned in January, we were over 1,000. But if you compare that to COVID, we can celebrate some gains here. It was very difficult for the ministry to locate our children, but we have been doing much better, she said. The ministry has not been able to account for 335 students, I guess that's the exact number, since Category 5 hurricane ravished the island in October of last year, 2025, that is. Troop outlined several challenges persons faced when searching for the children, including community members not being familiar with their given names. That's true. Families having relocated elsewhere, and home addresses that are no longer valid due to the complete destruction of the house. She stated that the ministry is also yet to put in a mechanism where it can precisely track students who relocated and changed schools. Grateful is a subheading, and this is her speaking again. We do have some more work to do in the ministry to address that, but notwithstanding, we must celebrate the work on the ground for all our helping professionals in the field, our principals who have been calling, our guidance counselors, you have been on the call, you have been out there, and we are extremely grateful, she said. Meanwhile, ETOC chairman Dr. Adrian Stokes noted that more than 372,300 students are currently enrolled in schools, but expressed concern about those absent from formal education. We need to, and this is the doctor speaking here, we need to ascertain the status. Yes, so we need to ascertain the status of the students, because the focus is really to ensure that no child is left behind. So 300 in the context of over 300 students doesn't sound like a big number. It does sound big. I understand what you're saying when you say in the comment. It sounds big though. 300 is quite a number of students. You know, from a statistical perspective, I get that, but it sounds big. But each life and each student is very, very important to us, he stated. Providing an update on the implementation of the Orlando-Patterson reports recommendations, Stokes noted that the process remained on track, with 37% completed so far, an increase of 5% from the last quarterly briefing. The Patterson report, designed to address long-standing gaps in Jamaica's education system, spans an 8-year implementation period from 2023 to 2031, with ETOC responsible for monitoring the process. Of the 365 recommendations outlined in the report, 189 are currently being implemented by the Ministry of Education, and 86 of those have been completed. He's speaking now again. The project plan calls for a completion rate of 40% by end of the current period. That is by March 31, 2026. From the guidance given by the ministry, the progress rate should be at or around 40% mark by the end of March, which means for quarter four, we should be on target, which is a good position to be in at this stage of the implementation, he said. Stokes noted that the transformation plan had to be amended because of the impact of Hurricane Melissa, with priorities reordered to ensure speedy and resilient recovery. He's speaking again. The infrastructure pillar was always a critical one for the transformation effort. What Melissa has done, it has created an opportunity for us to front load and beef up the infrastructure spend that was being contemplated, he said. In the original plan, some 234 schools were slated for infrastructure update over the transformation period. This has now increased to over 600 schools being targeted for major upgrade, he added. He noted that 8 schools will be rebuilt over the period as part of the overall upgrading of school infrastructure. That is good. That's very, very good to know. Stokes noted that the government would need to make some bold choices to ensure that proper funding is secured to rebuild at the scale and speed needed. He contended that the national budget cannot accommodate the scale of the financial capital needed to rebuild, and suggested that the government enact measures to bring in private capital as part of its capital mobilization strategy. He's speaking again. For every school built by the government, the state should seek to sell that school to pension funds and other long-term investors and enter simultaneously into long-term contracts with those same investors, he said. Alternatively, he posited that pension funds be used to build schools and then those schools be leased back to the government. On a long-term basis, a school sold to Jamaican pension funds and leased back to the Ministry of Education is not a privatization. It's what we would call a mobilization. The state retains control. Students keep their classrooms. Pension savers gain stable, long-duration returns, he said. It's a sad reality to know that 335 students, also it's a lot. That's a lot, have been missing. And I know that Hurricane Melissa is certainly a big contributor to that. It's also, maybe on a lesser extent, or to a lesser extent, it could be how the teacher sometimes can make the students feel. Make them feel as if they're stupid, if they're dotish, if they're oafs, if they have no sense. You're going to lose them before the time, because nobody will sit and take psychological and verbal abuse and mental abuse in some ways. So it could also mean that because their houses, especially out in the West, their houses have been demolished, most of them, and in a bad state. They probably, have nowhere to go and get ready, show up, fix themselves up. So they just say, you know what, I'm staying out because I don't want no student and me getting any bangarang, any fight, because them tell me I smell bad. So there's so many contending factors out there that would contribute greatly to these students missing, from getting a solid education, and trying to build on that as they get older. So I really hope, I don't mind the initiative. I hope that they can find ways and means of finding them and getting them in the system. We need to raise the bar as it relates to our literacy and the literacy rate. We need to raise the bar as it relates to our comprehension and critical thinking skills. Those three amigos are the best of friends, and they're wreaking havoc in the minds, in the hearts, and in the will of the people of Jamaica. And that is a big part and parcel as to why the literacy rate is where it is at. Sometimes the teaching styles may not be palatable, may not be enjoyable, and it's very difficult to be going to a class where it is blah. It's just, and so I'm really and truly hoping that a lot of improvements will be taking place and that these 300 and odd students will find their way back home. Anyway, guys, to the Real TikTok and YouTube, subscribe, give me one of those lands, and you can follow me on Instagram. Have a good one.